Changing the oil on your Perkins 4108 doesn't have to be a big or intimidating project. It's something very simple, and I'm here to show you the tools that you'll need and how to use them in order to successfully change your engine's oil. Now, if you're prepared and you have all the tools that you need, this project shouldn't take you any more than 30 minutes to complete from start to finish. Now, it should go without saying, but one of the first things that you're going to need for this project is oil. Now, if you read in your owner's manual from Perkins, it'll give you a couple of recommendations on oil grades that you can use. But nowadays, most people aren't using what's in the book, and we're using Shell Rotella 15W40 or equivalent grades of oil. You can use a 15W30 if you're in a colder climate, or other equivalent grades, but this is the particular brand and type of oil that I've been using for a long time, so it's the same kind that I'm going to use today. The next thing that you'll also need is an oil filter. What type of filter you need is going to depend on which particular 4108 model you have. For me, and for most of you, it's going to be this Wix 51806. Before I begin, I like to write today's date on the filter itself. That way I have an easy way to identify when I last changed my oil. Keep in mind this should be done at least once a year or every 150 hours of engine runtime, depending on which one comes first. In the last 8 years of owning this engine, I've never actually hit that 150 hours, so I just do this about once every year. Now, another item that you're going to want to have ready is a strap wrench. If you get an oil filter wrench, it might actually not be big enough for the size of filter that these Perkins use. I found that out the hard way the first time I did this, and it was really annoying trying to use it. So make sure that whatever strap wrench you have is large enough to accommodate whatever filter you're going to use. Now, unlike a car engine, if your engine is on a boat, you're not going to have an easy access to the drain plug at the bottom of the engine. So we use an oil extractor pump. This little guy will draw a vacuum on the oil and suck it out of the oil dipstick tube, and I'll show you how we do that inside the engine room. Some people will also use an electric gear oil pump to help pump that oil out. Either one will work for this project. If your engine's hard to get to, mine's not, but if yours is, you're also going to want a clean funnel. That way you can pour the oil into the engine without making a huge mess. Speaking of messy, the last thing that you're going to need are oil soak pads and rags and a trash bag to help clean up the mess as we make it. Let's head on down to the engine room and start the process. Now, there's a really good chance that your engine is not going to be as easily accessible as mine is. But if yours is like mine, your oil filter is going to be here on a separate bracket. Your oil dipstick is going to be somewhere near the middle of the engine. And we can use this to check the oil level and quality. And your oil fill cap is going to be here on top of the engine. You're not going to want to get that confused with the coolant cap, which is also right next to it. But that spout is where we're going to be putting our new oil. Now, before you start taking the oil out of the engine, you're going to want to run it for about 10 to 15 minutes. That way the oil is nice and warm and it'll actually flow a lot easier out of the engine. Now that the engine has run and had a chance to warm up, we're going to take the hose from the oil extractor and compare that to our dipstick. Now, the reason that we're doing this is that if you push this hose down into the engine too far, the end will actually curve up and it won't suck all of the oil out. So we want it to be just a few inches past the length of the dipstick, and we're going to mark it near the top with our hand or with a marker if you want. And holding it there, I'm going to set the dipstick aside and slide this tube into the engine. And this is just going right down the pipe where the dipstick came out of. Once I've hit my mark, I can stop and connect the other end of the hose to the oil extractor. If you have one like this, all you have to do is start pumping, and the oil is going to start flowing out of the hose. And you're going to want to give it a pump every now and then just to keep it going. Now, with this oil extractor, I have to make 2 trips up to the oil dump because it's not big enough to hold all the oil that this engine can hold. But once you're done, it's going to make a gurgling sound, and that's basically it. You don't need to get every last drop of oil out of the engine before you put the new stuff in. It's okay if there's a little bit of residual oil left. What is important, though, is that you make sure that you dispose of it in an environmentally sustainable way. Most marinas will have a used oil dump collection site where that oil can go and be recycled. But the absolute worst thing that you can do is dump it into the water, so please don't do that. Okay, now pulling the filter off is probably the messiest part of this whole process. To help contain the mess and make sure no oil goes into the bilge and then out into the ocean, I like to put a plastic bag around the filter, and that way as it drops in, any oil that does spill out will be caught in the bag. I also like to put a couple of oil soak pads in the bag to help soak up that loose oil. Now we're going to use our strap wrench to take the oil filter off. And keep in mind this is a directional tool, so as we set it up we want to make sure that as we go lefty-loosey, it will tighten itself down. I was turning it the wrong way. It is lefty-loosey, but that's from the perspective of looking up at it, not from looking down on it. Now that it's free to spin, I'm definitely going to get that bag up and ready to catch that oil. And spin it off into the bag. You can see that's why we keep the bag there, because this is extremely messy. Once that's off and we're done draining the oil, we can go ahead and dispose of this in accordance with our local regulations. Now if you read the symbols on the side of your filter, some filters like you to pre-fill them with oil. So we're going to go ahead and pre-fill this with some of our oil and then screw it onto that bracket. And if you make a mess, that's okay. That's what the oil soak pads are for. You do want to make sure that this seal is well lubricated, otherwise it's going to stick the next time that you try to take it off. So make sure that there is a little bit of oil left on the very top. And once it's hand tight, we don't actually need to crank it down with the oil wrench. That is good enough. Now to fill the engine oil again, it's actually easier for me to come around to the front side because the oil fill is right here. And anytime you're doing this, you want to make sure that you have an oil soak pad ready to catch any spills. Now one trick I found with these jugs is if you turn them sideways to pour them, they won't glug like a milk jug. It'll flow a lot nicer and you'll have a cleaner pour. Just like that. I'm not going to put the full gallon into the engine yet. I want to check it on the dipstick after a few minutes to make sure that I'm not overfilling the engine with oil. And you can't really see the line on the camera, but it is directly between the min and max right now. So I'm not going to add any more at this point. We're going to run the engine for about 5 minutes, let that circulate, and then check it again. Okay, so we've run it now and we've topped it off again. The oil level is still about between the minimum and maximum lines. So I'm going to add just a splash from this quart that I have, just because I know tomorrow we're going to be running the boat a lot more than normal. So I want to make sure that it is actually topped off. Okay, that took us right up to the maximum, so we're done. So with filming, that took me about an hour to do, but without filming, there's no reason why that can't be done in less than half an hour. The last really important step that you need to do is you need to actually track your engine's maintenance. A lot of boat owners don't keep a maintenance log, and it's frustrating because when you go to look at buying one, there's no record of when the oil was changed, there's no record of when the belts were changed or when the fuel filters were changed. But keeping a comprehensive log of when you're doing all these maintenance projects will help you remember to do them, and it can really help with planning when you need to do it again. Anyway, that's all we've got. If you have any questions about your engine and how to maintain it, let me know in the comments. I'd love to help you out. And if you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And we'll see you guys again very soon.